the Galactic Council's xenobiology research vessel, Harmonious Discovery, drifted silently through the outer reaches of the Sol system, its sensors focused on the third planet from the star. Dr. Zixathala, the ship's lead xenobiologist, manipulated the holographic display with her 4 delicate appendages, zooming in on what the primitive inhabitants called Earth. Fascinating, she whispered in her native tongue, a series of melodic chimes that her universal translator converted to standard galactic. The preliminary scans show an incredible diversity of life forms. This planet appears to be teeming with biological activity. Her research partner, Dr. Kethmore, glided closer on his hover disk. His crystalline body refracted the blue light from the display, casting rainbow patterns across the sterile walls of their laboratory. Indeed, colleague Zixathala, the atmospheric composition suggests optimal conditions for carbon-based life. Oxygen levels are remarkably high, and the presence of liquid water across 71% of the surface indicates a thriving biosphere. The 2 scientists belonged to different species, but shared the same intellectual curiosity that had brought them together on this mission. Zixathala's people, the Velnari, were peaceful herbivores from a world where plants grew in perfect harmony, providing sustenance without competition or conflict. Kethmore's crystalline race, the Silketh, absorbed energy directly from their twin suns, never needing to consume other living beings. Begin the detailed biological survey, Zixathala commanded the ship's artificial intelligence. I want complete taxonomic data on all life forms, starting with the largest specimens and working our way down to the microscopic level. The AI's response was immediate. Initiating comprehensive biological scan. Warning, detecting unusual energy signatures. Multiple life forms appear to be in constant motion patterns suggesting conflict. Kethmore's crystalline form dimmed slightly, a sign of confusion among his people. Conflict? Perhaps the AI is misinterpreting migration patterns or mating rituals. The holographic display suddenly filled with images that made both scientists recoil in horror. A massive creature with elongated jaws filled with razor-sharp teeth was pursuing a 4-legged animal across an open plain. The pursuing creature, which their database identified as an African lion, leaped onto its prey with devastating efficiency. By the eternal gardens, Zixathala gasped, her pale blue skin turning an even lighter shade. It's consuming another life form. The display continued its grim show. A creature their sensors identified as a great white shark exploded from the water, its massive jaws clamping down on a seal. Blood clouded the water as the predator thrashed violently with its prey. Kethmore's form flickered rapidly, the Silketh equivalent of hyperventilation. This must be some kind of recording error. Surely no civilized planet could host life forms that deliberately end other lives for consumption. But the evidence continued to mount. Their sensors showed tigers stalking deer through dense forests, eagles swooping down to snatch fish from rivers, and wolves hunting in coordinated packs to bring down massive elk. Each scene was more disturbing than the last to the 2 peaceful scientists. Computer, verify these readings, Zixathala commanded, her voice shaking. Cross-reference with our databases of known biological behaviors across the galaxy. Verification complete. All readings are accurate. This planet exhibits what human scientists term a food chain, a hierarchical system where organisms obtain energy by consuming other organisms. Warning, detecting over 2 million species engaged in predatory behavior. The number hit both scientists like a physical blow. On Zixathala's homeworld, the most aggressive behavior observed was plants competing for optimal sunlight positions. On Kethmore's crystal world, the closest thing to conflict was 2 individuals absorbing energy from the same solar ray, which was resolved through polite negotiation. 2 million predatory species, Kethmore repeated, his voice hollow. How has this planet not destroyed itself? The display shifted to show smaller creatures. A spider sat motionless in an intricate web until a fly became entangled. With frightening efficiency, the spider pounced and began injecting its prey with digestive enzymes. Praying mantises devoured their mates during reproduction. Army ants swarmed across forest floors, overwhelming everything in their path. The microscopic level is equally disturbing, the AI reported. Bacterial organisms consume other bacteria. Viruses hijack cellular structures to replicate themselves. Even at the molecular level, this planet operates on principles of consumption and destruction. Zixthala slumped in her chair, overwhelmed by the data. And yet, she said slowly, look at the diversity. Look at the sheer abundance of life. How can a system based on death create such vibrant ecosystems? The AI provided more data. Preliminary analysis suggests this system of consumption has driven rapid evolutionary adaptation. Species have developed remarkable abilities to hunt, defend, and survive. The pressure of predation has resulted in innovations not seen on any other cataloged world. They watched a chameleon change colors to blend with its environment, then shoot out its tongue with lightning speed to capture an insect. An octopus squeezed through an impossibly small crevice to escape a moray eel. A bombardier beetle mixed chemicals in its abdomen to create an explosive defense against ant attackers. Each adaptation to survive predation creates new challenges for predators, Kethmore observed, his scientific mind beginning to process the implications. It's a constant cycle of innovation driven by the necessity of survival. The display showed them schools of fish moving in perfect synchronization to confuse predators, birds developing elaborate camouflage to hide from hawks, and plants evolving toxins to prevent consumption by herbivores. Every defensive adaptation was met by new hunting strategies from predators. But what about the dominant species? Zixthala asked. The ones showing signs of technology and space observation capabilities. Surely they've evolved beyond this savage system. The AI zoomed in on human settlements. The dominant species, classified as Homo sapiens, exhibits the most complex relationship with predation. They appear to have transcended direct predation, but maintain elements of this system in their food production. Images filled the screen of human farms, ranches, and fishing operations. Cattle grazed peacefully in fields, unaware of their eventual fate. Chickens pecked at grain in organized coops. Massive fishing vessels hauled in nets full of marine life. They've systematized it, Kethmore whispered. They've turned predation into an organized, technological process. But then the display showed something that confused both scientists. Humans were also growing plants in vast agricultural fields, harvesting grains and vegetables. Some humans appeared to consume only plant matter, while others consumed both plants and animals. They have choices, Zixthala realized. Unlike other species on this planet, these humans can survive without direct predation, yet many choose to continue the pattern. The AI provided additional context. Human nutritional requirements can be met through plant consumption alone, though many individuals continue to consume animal proteins. Their culture appears to maintain connections to their predatory ancestry while developing alternatives. More disturbing revelations followed. Humans didn't just hunt for survival. They hunted for sport. Images showed humans tracking large game animals not out of hunger, but for recreation. They displayed the heads of killed animals as trophies, celebrating successful hunts with ceremonies and social gatherings. This is beyond biological necessity, Kethmore observed. They've maintained predatory behavior as a cultural practice. Yet the humans also showed inexplicable compassion. The same species that hunted animals for sport also rescued injured wildlife, maintained elaborate zoological parks for conservation, and formed emotional bonds with domesticated animals they called pets. Some humans dedicated their lives to protecting endangered species, even risking their own safety to preserve predators that could kill them. "The contradictions are staggering," Zixthala said, studying the data streams. "They simultaneously protect and destroy, nurture and hunt, love and kill." The AI presented its most shocking discovery. "Analysis indicates that this predatory system has directly contributed to the rapid development of human intelligence and technology. The necessity of hunting, tracking, and processing prey required sophisticated cognitive abilities. Tool use, cooperation, strategic thinking, and long-term planning all evolved as responses to predatory pressures. Images showed early human ancestors crafting weapons, coordinating hunts, and developing fire to process meat. The energy density of animal proteins had fueled brain development, while the challenges of hunting had driven social cooperation and technological innovation. Their violence made them intelligent, Kethmore realized. Their capacity for destruction enabled their capacity for creation. The implications hit both scientists simultaneously. This planet of predators had developed space technology, complex art, sophisticated philosophy, and scientific methods that rivaled the greatest achievements of peaceful galactic civilizations. Their violent origins hadn't prevented intellectual development. They had accelerated it. "We need to report this to the Galactic Council immediately," Zixthala said, her voice trembling. "A predatory species on the verge of space travel? The implications for galactic peace are enormous." But as they prepared their preliminary report, more data streamed in. Humans had also developed concepts of justice, mercy, and compassion that guided their behavior. They created laws to prevent unnecessary killing, formed international organizations to resolve conflicts peacefully, and produced art celebrating beauty and love alongside their capacity for violence. "How do we explain this to the Council?" Kethmore asked. "A species capable of systematic predation that has also developed ethics sophisticated enough to limit their own destructive impulses?" The answer would have to wait. Their initial observations had raised more questions than they had answered, and both scientists realized they were witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. A predatory species that had developed wisdom alongside their weapons, compassion alongside their capacity for destruction. As the harmonious discovery continued its orbit around Earth, the two scientists struggled to comprehend the complex biological and cultural system they had discovered. The planet below continued its ancient dance of predation and cooperation, death and life, violence and beauty, a combination that had somehow produced one of the most dynamic and rapidly advancing biospheres either scientist had ever encountered. The real challenge would be convincing the peaceful species of the Galactic Council that this world of predators might represent not a threat to galactic civilization, but an unprecedented opportunity to understand how violence and wisdom could coexist in the same evolutionary system. 3 solar cycles had passed since Dr. Zixthala and Dr. Kethmore submitted their initial report on the predatory planet called Earth. The response from the Galactic Council had been swift and decisive. Establish a hidden observation post and conduct detailed behavioral analysis of the dominant species before any contact decisions were made. The research station now maintained a perfect orbit in Earth's shadow, invisible to human detection systems. What had begun as a 2-scientist mission had expanded into the largest xenological study in Council history. Representatives from 12 different species now worked around the clock, trying to understand the paradox of human civilization. Dr. Veshatai, a 6-limbed researcher from the pacifist Morden Collective, gestured toward the main display with obvious distress. "I've spent weeks studying their concept of entertainment, and I must report that humans voluntarily observe simulated predation for pleasure." The holographic display showed scenes from human movies and television programs. Massive creatures battled to the death while audiences cheered. Humans created elaborate fictional scenarios where individuals fought with weapons, vehicles, and even their bare hands. Children played games that simulated hunting, warfare, and survival scenarios. They call it action entertainment, Veshtai continued, his voice conveying the horror his species felt at such concepts. Humans gather in large groups to watch other humans engage in ritualized combat sports. They celebrate those who demonstrate superior fighting abilities. Dr. Zix Thala, now serving as the mission's chief xenopsychologist, manipulated the display to show boxing matches, mixed martial arts competitions, and wrestling events. Yet notice the complex rules governing these activities. They've created structured ways to express their predatory instincts while minimizing actual harm. Dr. Linara, a new addition to the team from the telepathic Zenkari Confederation, projected her thoughts directly into the universal translator. I've been monitoring human neural patterns during these activities. The participants experience genuine pleasure from simulated combat, but they also demonstrate remarkable control over their aggressive impulses. The display shifted to show a boxing match where one fighter was clearly defeated. Instead of delivering a killing blow, the victor immediately showed concern for his opponent's well-being. Referees and medical personnel rushed to assist the fallen fighter. The winner helped his opponent to his feet and embraced him respectfully. They've weaponized their predatory instincts into art forms, Dr. Kethmore observed, his crystalline structure brightening with intellectual fascination. Competition without consumption. Conflict without death. Their analysis expanded to examine human sports in general. Humans had created thousands of activities that channeled competitive drives into harmless outlets. They raced against each other in various forms of locomotion, competed to score points by moving objects through designated areas, and challenged each other's physical abilities through elaborate obstacle courses. The most remarkable aspect, Linara projected, is how they've made cooperation and competition coexist. In their team sports, humans must simultaneously compete against opponents while cooperating with teammates. The display showed a soccer match where players demonstrated both fierce determination to win and immediate concern for injured opponents. When a player fell, competitors from both teams stopped their aggressive play to ensure the individual received proper care. This contradicts every model of predatory behavior in our databases, Veshatai admitted reluctantly. Predators should lack empathy for their prey, yet humans consistently demonstrate compassion even for those they're competing against. Dr. Quintel, a massive researcher from the gas giant dwelling Nefhari, added his deep, resonant voice to the discussion. I've been studying their food procurement systems, and the contradictions become even more pronounced. Humans have developed the technological capability to create artificial proteins that perfectly replicate the nutritional value of animal flesh, yet many continue to raise and consume actual animals. The display showed modern human agriculture and food science. Laboratory-grown meat was becoming increasingly sophisticated, and plant-based protein alternatives could satisfy human nutritional needs completely. Yet traditional animal agriculture continued alongside these innovations. They have eliminated the necessity for predation but maintained the practice by choice, Quintel continued. Some humans refuse to consume any animal products and appear to thrive on plant-based diets. Others insist on traditional animal consumption despite having alternatives. Dr. Zix Thala manipulated the display to show human hunting activities. And some continue to hunt wild animals despite having abundant alternative food sources. They claim it connects them to their ancestral heritage and provides a deeper appreciation for the life they're taking. The research team watched footage of human hunters performing ceremonies before and after kills, expressing gratitude to the animals they harvested and utilizing every part of the carcass to minimize waste. These same humans often contributed significant resources to wildlife conservation efforts. "They honor their prey," Linara projected with amazement. "No other predatory species in our database has ever demonstrated reverence for consumed organisms." The behavioral analysis expanded to examine human warfare, the most disturbing aspect of their civilization for the peaceful council species. Humans had developed weapons capable of destroying their entire planet multiple times over, yet had somehow avoided using them in major conflicts for nearly 8 decades. "They've achieved a state of armed peace," Dr. Kethmore observed. "Their capacity for destruction has become so complete that they've paradoxically reduced large-scale violence." The display showed images of nuclear weapons stockpiles alongside international peace conferences and diplomatic negotiations. Humans had created complex institutions designed to resolve conflicts through discussion rather than combat, even while maintaining the ability to annihilate each other instantly. "Their military organizations demonstrate the same contradictions," Quintel noted. "Human soldiers are trained for maximum combat efficiency. Yet their rules of engagement include extensive provisions for protecting civilians and treating captured enemies humanely." Video footage showed human military personnel providing medical care to wounded enemies, distributing food to civilian populations in conflict zones, and risking their own lives to protect non-combatants. The same humans trained to kill efficiently also demonstrated extraordinary dedication to preserving life when circumstances permitted. Dr. Rethval, a diminutive researcher from the Harmony-focused Piplin Unity, spoke in barely audible whispers that the translator amplified. "I've been studying their family structures and child-rearing practices. Human parents teach their offspring both aggression and compassion simultaneously." The display showed human children engaged in various activities. Parents encouraged competitive behavior in sports and games while emphasizing cooperation and kindness in social interactions. Children learned to defend themselves against threats while being taught to help those in need. "They prepare their young for a world of potential violence while instilling values that discourage unnecessary aggression," Rethval continued. "It's an impossible balance that somehow produces functional adults." Video showed human children playing games that involved mock combat, strategic thinking, and competitive problem-solving. The same children also engaged in collaborative activities like building projects, artistic creation, and caring for smaller children or animals. "Perhaps most remarkably," Linara projected, "human children demonstrate natural empathy for other species despite being taught about the food chain. They form emotional bonds with animals while understanding that some animals consume others for survival." The research team watched children feeding birds, rescuing injured animals, and expressing sadness when pets died of natural causes. These same children accepted that their hamburgers came from cattle and that their favorite seafood dishes involved the deaths of marine animals. Dr. Zixthala pulled up comparative analysis charts showing human behavior patterns against other known species. "No other intelligent species has maintained this dual nature. They've retained their predatory capabilities while developing ethical frameworks that often conflict with those instincts." The charts showed that humans regularly acted against their immediate self-interest to help others, including members of other species. They sacrificed time, resources, and sometimes their lives to protect entities that provided them no evolutionary advantage. "They've transcended their biology without abandoning it," Dr. Kethmore realized. "They've kept the strengths that predation provided, intelligence, cooperation, innovation, while developing moral systems to limit its destructive aspects." The display showed human rescue workers risking their lives to save people they'd never met, scientists dedicating their careers to protecting endangered species, and ordinary individuals making daily choices that prioritized others' well-being over their own immediate desires. "But we still haven't answered the fundamental question," Veshitai interjected. What happens when this predatory species encounters our peaceful civilizations? Their history shows they're capable of remarkable violence when they perceive threats. Dr. Quintel accessed historical databases showing human conflicts throughout their recorded history. Wars, genocides, and systematic oppression demonstrated humanity's capacity for organized violence on massive scales. Yet these same periods also showed humans risking everything to protect vulnerable populations and oppose injustice. Every example of human cruelty is matched by examples of human heroism, he observed. Their greatest villains and greatest heroes often emerge from the same circumstances, suggesting that their predatory nature can be directed toward either destructive or protective purposes. Lynn Ara had been monitoring human communications networks and projected her findings to the group. I've detected extensive debates among humans about first contact scenarios. They're actively discussing how they would behave if they encountered other intelligent species. The display showed human science fiction, philosophical discussions, and scientific protocols for potential extraterrestrial contact. Humans had developed detailed plans for peaceful interaction with alien species, despite having no evidence that such species existed. They've created the SETI Institute specifically to search for other intelligent life, Lynn Ara continued. Their protocols emphasize peaceful communication and cultural exchange rather than conquest or exploitation. Yet the same human governments that funded peaceful contact research also maintained military space programs and weapons development projects. The contradictions seem to define everything about human civilization. I propose that we're witnessing an evolutionary transition, Dr. Zixthala said slowly. Humans are caught between their predatory past and a more cooperative future. The question isn't whether they're violent or peaceful. They're both, simultaneously. The research team fell silent as they contemplated the implications. Humanity represented something unprecedented in galactic history, a species that had evolved from predators but was actively choosing to become something else, one decision at a time. The Galactic Council needs to understand that contact with humans won't be simple, Dr. Kethmore concluded. They're not a purely peaceful species we can easily integrate, but they're also not a purely aggressive species we need to fear. They're something entirely new. As the observation mission entered its 4th month, the research team realized they were documenting not just human behavior, but a fundamental transformation in how intelligent life could develop. Earth's lethal food chain had produced something the galaxy had never seen before, a species that could choose its own nature. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in the great crystalline amphitheater of the Harmony Station, with representatives from 47 species gathering to review the most controversial first contact decision in Council history. Dr. Zixthala stood at the center of the chamber, her research team's 18 months of data compiled into a presentation that would determine humanity's fate. High Chancellor Morduin, an ancient being whose people had founded the Council 3 millennia ago, projected her thoughts into the universal consciousness network shared by all attendees. Dr. Zixthala, your preliminary reports have caused considerable alarm throughout the peaceful species of this galaxy. Present your final analysis of this predatory civilization. The holographic display activated, showing Earth in all its blue-green beauty. Honored Council members, humanity represents something unprecedented in our galactic survey of intelligent species. They have evolved from what may be the most violently competitive biosphere ever documented, yet they have developed wisdom, compassion, and technological capability that rivals our greatest civilizations. Councillor Veltek of the Rational Assembly projected skepticism into the network. Dr. Zixthala, your own data shows these humans engaging in systematic violence, maintaining weapons of planetary destruction, and deriving entertainment from simulated combat. How can you recommend contact with such a species? Because, honored counselor, They choose not to use those capabilities for destruction, Zixthala replied. Let me show you what we discovered during our extended observation period. The display shifted to show recent human activities that had amazed the research team. International cooperation on space exploration projects brought together former enemies to build orbital laboratories. Climate change mitigation efforts saw humans voluntarily reducing their consumption to protect other species' habitats. Medical research sharing had accelerated development of treatments for diseases that primarily affected populations with no economic power. 6 months ago, we observed something remarkable, Dr. Zixthala continued. A major earthquake struck a remote human population center. Within hours, former military enemies were coordinating massive rescue efforts, sharing resources and expertise to save as many lives as possible. The footage showed military aircraft from nations that had been engaged in armed conflicts just decades earlier, working together to deliver supplies and evacuate civilians. Humans risked their lives repeatedly to rescue people they'd never met, including citizens of countries their governments considered adversaries. Dr. Kethmore joined the presentation, his crystalline form refracting the chamber's ambient light. We documented over 15,000 individual acts of heroism during this disaster response. Humans consistently prioritized saving others over their own safety, including protecting their historical enemies. Counselor Zixara of the Pacifist Confederation projected strong concern. But surely this was an anomaly. Your data also shows humans engaging in warfare and violence. Indeed they do, Kethmore acknowledged, but observe how their approach to warfare has evolved. The display showed modern human conflict resolution, peacekeeping operations, and rules of engagement that prioritized civilian protection. Humans have developed what they call just war theory, he explained. They've created ethical frameworks that distinguish between acceptable and unacceptable violence. Their military forces are trained not just to fight efficiently, but to minimize collateral damage and protect non-combatants. The footage showed human soldiers providing medical care to wounded enemies, establishing safe zones for civilians in conflict areas, and court-martialing their own members for violations of ethical conduct during warfare. Dr. Linara's telepathic projection reached every mind in the chamber. I have monitored human consciousness during violent conflicts. They experience genuine distress when forced to harm others, even enemies. Their predatory instincts remain, but they've developed emotional responses that create internal resistance to unnecessary violence. The display showed interviews with human combat veterans discussing their experiences. Many described lasting psychological effects from violence they'd been forced to commit, even when it was legally and morally justified. Human societies had developed extensive support systems to help warriors cope with the emotional cost of their protective roles. They've retained the capability for violence while developing psychological mechanisms that discourage its use, Linara continued. This internal conflict between capability and conscience appears to be driving their rapid cultural evolution. High Chancellor Morduin projected thoughtful consideration. Your data is fascinating, but it doesn't address our primary concern. How do we know these humans won't view our peaceful civilizations as prey? Their entire evolutionary history is based on consuming other life forms. Dr. Zixthala manipulated the display to show human interactions with vulnerable populations within their own species. Observe how humans treat those who cannot defend themselves. Their elderly, disabled, and young receive protection and care rather than abandonment or consumption. The footage showed human societies allocating enormous resources to care for individuals who provided no economic benefit. Hospitals treated patients regardless of their ability to pay, educational systems invested in children with learning disabilities, and social programs supported elderly individuals long after their productive years ended. More significantly, Zixthala continued, Observe their relationship with non-intelligent species. The display showed human conservation efforts, wildlife rehabilitation centers, and laws protecting endangered animals. Humans spend billions of their monetary units to protect species that pose no threat to them and provide no immediate benefit. They've established vast protected areas where other species live undisturbed. Some humans dedicate their entire lives to preserving animals that could easily kill them. The footage showed researchers studying dangerous predators, veterinarians treating wild animals, and ordinary citizens modifying their behavior to protect migrating wildlife. Humans built bridges for animals to cross highways safely, established feeding programs for species affected by environmental changes, and created international treaties to protect marine life. Counselor Nethrim of the Scientific Collective projected curiosity. But why? What evolutionary advantage do they gain from protecting potential prey species? None, Dr. Quintel responded, joining the presentation. This behavior represents something new in evolutionary biology. Humans have developed what they call ethics, behavioral patterns that often contradict their immediate self-interest or survival instincts. The display showed examples of human ethical behavior across cultures and time periods. Individuals sacrificing their lives to save strangers, societies choosing economic disadvantages to protect other species' habitats, and political movements dedicated to reducing suffering among populations with no political power. They've developed the capacity to act against their predatory programming, Quintel continued. Not consistently and not universally, but with sufficient frequency to suggest this represents a fundamental shift in their species' development. Dr. Rethval's whispered analysis was amplified for the chamber. I've studied their educational systems extensively. Human children are systematically taught to question their instincts, consider others' perspectives, and choose cooperation over competition when possible. The display showed human schools where children from different ethnic, religious, and economic backgrounds learned together. Curricula included conflict resolution, empathy development, and critical thinking skills designed to prevent prejudice and promote peaceful interaction. They're deliberately trying to evolve beyond their predatory origins, Rethval continued. Each generation receives training in cooperative behavior that builds upon the previous generation's progress. The presentation shifted to show human art, literature, and philosophy. Stories celebrated heroes who protected others rather than conquered them. Philosophical systems emphasized compassion, justice, and mutual aid as the highest human virtues. Religious traditions taught that the greatest individuals were those who served others rather than dominated them. Their greatest cultural achievements consistently promote cooperation over predation, Dr. Zix-Thala observed. They've created ideologies that directly contradict their evolutionary programming. High Chancellor Morduin projected deep contemplation. You present compelling evidence of human potential for peaceful behavior. But our fundamental concern remains. Are they safe to contact? Dr. Zix-Thala accessed her most sensitive data files. Honored Chancellor, we believe contact may be not only safe but necessary. Our analysis suggests that isolation may actually increase the risk of humans developing dangerous tendencies. The display showed human speculation about extraterrestrial life. Science fiction often portrayed first contact scenarios where humans were either conquered by superior aliens or forced to defend themselves against hostile invaders. Humans are developing space travel capabilities and will eventually discover other intelligent species, Zix-Thala explained. If they encounter us unprepared, their defensive instincts might override their cooperative tendencies. However, if we initiate contact carefully, we can engage their remarkable capacity for learning and adaptation. Dr. Kethmore added supporting analysis. Humans consistently respond positively to entities that approach them peacefully and honestly. Their historical records show that they're capable of forming lasting alliances with former enemies when trust is established through transparent communication. The display showed examples of human diplomatic successes, international cooperation agreements, and cultural exchange programs that had transformed hostile relationships into productive partnerships. "We recommend a graduated contact protocol," Linara projected. "Begin with remote communication to demonstrate our peaceful intentions, then progress slowly as trust develops. Humans have protocols for first contact scenarios that emphasize scientific cooperation and cultural exchange." The chamber filled with telepathic discussion as 47 species debated the unprecedented decision. Never before had the Council considered contact with a species that retained significant predatory capabilities. Councillor Velthek projected final skepticism. "Even if we accept your analysis of human potential, the risk remains enormous. One human leader with aggressive tendencies could threaten multiple peaceful civilizations." "That same risk exists within our own species," Dr. Zixthala replied. "The difference is that humans have developed systems specifically designed to limit the power of aggressive individuals. They've created checks and balances that prevent any single person from wielding unlimited authority." The display showed human democratic institutions, international law systems, and civil rights protections. Even their most powerful leaders faced legal constraints, public oversight, and institutional limitations on their authority. "They've learned to protect themselves from their own destructive potential," Zixthala concluded. "They represent something unprecedented, a predatory species that has chosen to become something better." High Chancellor Morduin called for the formal decision protocol. "Members of the Galactic Council, you have heard the complete analysis of the human species. We must now decide whether to initiate first contact with this predatory civilization." The voting process took several hours as each species caucused to consider the implications. When the results were finally announced, the decision was closer than anyone had expected. 24 species voted for contact, 21 voted against, and 2 abstained. By the narrowest margin in Council history, High Chancellor Morduin announced, "We authorize the first contact protocol with the human species of Earth. Dr. Zixthala, you will lead the initial communication effort." As the Council session ended, Dr. Zixthala gazed at the holographic display still showing Earth's blue marble suspended in space. The planet that had shocked them with its violence had ultimately impressed them with humanity's capacity to choose cooperation over predation. The first message to humanity would be simple. "Greetings from the Galactic Council. We have observed your remarkable civilization and wish to establish peaceful communication between our species. What happened next would determine whether Earth's lethal food chain had produced a species capable of joining the galaxy's community of peaceful civilizations, or whether humanity's predatory heritage would ultimately prove too dangerous for contact." Dr. Zixthala began composing the most important message in galactic history, knowing that humanity's response would reveal whether violence and wisdom could truly coexist in the same species. The galaxy was about to discover if Earth's predators could become its protectors.